Hey everyone, welcome back to Quality Matters. I am your hostess, Darcy Chambers, here with my co-host,
Kyle?
Chambers,
yes.
We're glad you're back and listening. We're continuing our little mini-series on breaking down the ISO standard, not clause by clause, but processes that Kyle has broken it up into.
Yes.
Not necessarily what the ISO standard is broken
Yeah,
into.
and there's no set way to do it, but this, as we're going to do it over the next few weeks, is generally how I break it apart, especially in third-party audits.
In today's global economy, quality matters. Benjamin Franklin once quipped, "The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten." Quality Matters is here to talk about all things quality. So whether you're looking to improve your business, getting ready for an audit, or dealing with failed inspections, tune in, check us out, then get back to doing work that matters.
So last week was kind of just an introduction to the standard and how 9001, 14001, and what was the other one? 45001 all kind of interrelate. And we hope you caught our midweek special on Stump the Boss Lady, where I answered, 25 true
25,
false questions about the standard, and I passed.
Yes.
I was excited about that. So today's topic is it starts at the top.
Yes.
And kind of, I guess, how to get started with ISO certification and what to do. And Kyle has made me some little notes to kind of guide me.
Yeah.
But I guess he's made a note that says it's in context of the organization. The one thing I have really learned about the standard is that it doesn't have to be as complicated as people think.
No, not at all.
It's written very complicated.
Yeah.
To me. It's very thick, and the wording feels very legalese.
It is.
And if you don't know what you're reading, you don't know what you're reading. But when you actually looked at the standard, I've heard Kyle talk, we've talked about it, we've talked about quality on our podcast. So just kind of sitting back and observing and absorbing, I've learned it's really common sense stuff.
It is. That is, you hit the nail on the head. It's common sense written in kind of a legalistic terminology.
Yeah, because everybody has to do that, I guess. I don't know why.
Well, it's the best way to, like, if you're going to hold someone accountable to something, there's a certain way you've got to word it to be able to hold them accountable.
That makes sense.
Don't do dumb stuff. Doesn't work.
That's one of Kyle's favorite mantras. He even uses it with our kids at home when they make mistakes. And they say it was an accident. And he says, it wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
You did this, and then that happened. So don't do dumb stuff, and that won't happen. So it's really in the context of your own organization. A lot of people make it more complicated than it has to be.
Yeah.
And one of your notes says that there's whole procedures and manuals that have been written to help.
Yeah, and that's just with the context of the organization. And that drives me bonkers. And that's one of the things that I want to get to here. But it's like, this drives people crazy, or at least drove people crazy when the 2015 edition of the standard first came out. Because everyone's looking at it like, what the heck is context of the organization? This has never been mentioned in any of the previous revisions of the standard, and so folks get really flustered. And I have seen a 19-page long manual on how to develop the context of the organization for your organization. Context is actually fairly straightforward. The standard does do a poor job of how they word it, but it's really fairly simple once you get past that. Is, what do you do?
Okay.
What do you do? Tell me what you do. Tell me where you do it. Tell me who you sell it to. Then that segues us into the next part. What are our interested parties? And interested parties is not a hard thing. Interested parties is a new thing. But interested parties is who either impacts me or is impacted by me.
Okay, I think you're getting a little bit ahead.
Sure.
So let's go back to the context of the organization, because I think I misunderstood your little note.
Yeah.
I was thinking that we develop our manuals or adhere to the standard within the context of our organization, but this is something that needs to be defined for your quality program.
It does. And this also has to come from the top. This is going to come from your executive team or from the founder of the company or from, maybe it's just the top management if it's a separate facility or location. But we need to know what you do. And this is what context the organization is. What do you do? Who do you do it for? Who are your interested parties? And, give me some idea of, well, what procedures do you have and how do things interrelate? And you kind of have to know these top-level things. And you'll find that these top-level things still get addressed the same way they have always been addressed. You have a policy, generally says what you do and why you do it. You've got objectives that say what your key targets are, right? You have a quality manual that generally outlines what your program looks like. Hey, we handle documented information through this electronic system over here, or through...
This is all included in the context section.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you can get a sense real quick why it gets so complicated. Mm-hmm. And this is where folks go wrong, because they literally go wrong at the absolute first step.
Well, I'm already confused.
Okay.
I thought it was very simple, but I'm confused. So it sounds like you're doing everything right here at the beginning.
Not quite, but it's
you said you have to have the quality manual, which is like a big part of the standard.
It is, but it all tends to evolve together, and that's where it starts at the top. But kind of the theme for this episode is so incredibly important, because you have to have folks at the top guiding the development of the system. Because if you don't, you're going to wind up with kingdom building.
Okay, so my question is, and we may not have the answer for this because it's something we struggle with in our business, and I hope it's the question of some of our listeners out there. If you have your mid-level guy that's the quality manager or some other job and has been designated as a quality manager, which is what we most often encounter, and they've been told by the top, hey, we need to get this.
Right.
So how do they pull their top level guys in and say, okay, I've done the research, but you guys have to help. Yeah. It can't just be on me. So what is your advice for them?
Well, the advice is definitely not to slap the standard in front of your manager and say, hey, it says you're supposed to do this. That's probably not the advice.
I guess that's something you did.
Yeah, maybe. It didn't work out very well. No, there's a big difference in the quality manager, quality assurance manager, and the quality control manager. Quality control manager, a lot of times, winds up getting the assurance. There's kind of a difference there. Is quality control is just checking against what's already been documented. Are we doing what we said we do?
Okay.
Quality assurance, on the other hand, is really interfacing with a lot of people. The best advice I'd have for a quality assurance manager that is having a hard time getting that management input is probably read a couple of books that are not ISO. And these were hugely helpful for me. Totally different from kind of the typical way we go at things here. But one is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Okay.
Like, you just got to learn how to handle people.
How to get people on your side.
Yeah, because if you can't do that and your management team is not gung-ho about it in the way that they ought to be. Oh.
They are gung-ho. That's what we found.
Right.
They're gung-ho about you doing it.
Yeah. But, so, they're maybe not quite on board the way that you'd want them to be. And that happens so incredibly often. And then, the other one is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Okay, so we're going to read these 2 books, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah. And, I mean, again, like, this is probably not the way that folks are looking for this to go, but, man, if your management team is not committed to that improvement and that, kind of grassroots, let's, pick yourself up by your bootstraps kind of method, well, you just got to learn how to do it, because the fact is that they're the management, which, especially this smaller company, probably a bit of that entrepreneurial spirit still in them, and so they've got the desire, but they may be too overburdened with all of the thousands of meetings and reports and failed paperwork methodologies and all these type of things going on, they may be so overburdened by all that stuff that they just can't really give this the type of attention it needs. So it's your job to pull it out of them.
So you read those books and you better yourself.
Exactly.
And how you relate to others to get them more on board with the thing that they really want for
Yeah.
their company.
Yeah, and if you're like me and, you're not that great at actually reading for long periods of time, I guess free plug for Audible. Man, I just love Audible.
Yeah.
So
You like Audible and podcasts.
Yes.
That's what he listens to. Okay, so that was a little off track, but that's something that we encounter a lot, and I hope it's, beneficial to some of our listeners because, like I said, we encounter it a lot.
Yeah.
We almost always are talking to the quality manager or the guy that's just been handed the standard and said, fix this.
Yeah.
And then it goes to their manager and they say, oh, wait, we don't want to pay for all that. We don't want to actually do all that.
Right.
So it starts at the top. We're going to write the context of our organization.
Yep.
And you said that includes the who, where, what, why.
Yeah, and those are going to be contained, generally speaking, in your policy and your objectives and in a very simplified quality manual. I mean, we're talking about like 10 to 15 pages for the manual, really max. And all you're going to do is outline, different things about what your processes are and what procedures used to control this, and we handle changes over here with this department, and we do it this way. And you just outline stuff. Your manual in the new 2015 edition of the standard really should not contain anything unique. It's just stating this is how we do stuff in an organized manner.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know why. I just pictured the manual as something big.
Because it historically has been. The first safety manual that I wrote was over 100 pages long because it was effectively every single safety procedure and work instruction and contingency plan all in one big bad document. But the problem you run into is when you start trying to live and breathe continual improvement, you're probably going to make a change to something in that manual like quarterly.
So it really only needs to be what you truly do on a daily basis.
Not even that.
Oh.
Tell me the procedure that handles that stuff. It could be something as simple as control of non-conforming product from the XYZ production process is handled by procedure 1052. Done.
Okay, so where do we go find procedure 1052 or whatever you just said?
Well, that depends on how you handle things internally. Now, you could use a software like we provide, TQA Cloud, where it's all stored locally, or it's all stored in the cloud. Maybe it's in a spreadsheet or in a binder. Whatever the system you use is the system you use.
But it's not listed in the quality manual.
No, doesn't have to be. Yeah, no, the quality manual it's not even a required document anymore. It's not even a required document.
Oh, yeah, I learned that yesterday on Stump the Boss Lady.
Yeah, so it's still a useful document, but since it's not a required document, that means your auditor is not looking for anything specific in it. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't store this stuff in the quality manual, how are you going to do it? One of the key things you're going to do with the quality manual, and the standard talks about this, is in clause 4, is we want to know how different procedures or processes interrelate to each other. How are things connected? Well, your quality manual can describe that in some basic detail to satisfy the needs of the standard and to satisfy your own needs, because especially if this is a new system, in 3 months, oh my gosh, you're going to do so much stuff in the next 3 months, you're going to totally forget where you were trying to go. So that document is crucial.
And simple. Okay, so I think that's the key that Kyle wants to get across is this doesn't have to be hard. It needs to be simple. No. Kyle's pulling out the standard. He told me he was going to pull it out, and there were a few things he wanted to read, so I guess he's going to read us something.
Yep. So, we're talking about everything starts from the top. Kind of how it flows through here is they revised the quality management principles a little bit, but number one is customer focus. Well, we all get that, right? If the customer's not happy, we don't have a business.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
That's got to be first. But how do you make sure the customer's happy? Well, the first thing's leadership. Well, you as the quality manager, you're technically leadership. So the next one is engagement of the people. Well, we kind of talked about that already, right? So engagement of the people could mean engaging your management, could mean engaging the folks below or parallel to you. right? So we got to get people involved. It's just crucial. And then we talk about process approach, which isn't that kind of basically a little bit of what we were mentioning with what I like to use a quality manual for. So we're just going to outline what our processes are and how they connect and link together, right? So, like how shipping might have something to do with your nonconformity process. Well, let's lay out a few details there.
Okay.
But again, don't put anything unique, in the quality manual. Just it's a guide for your system.
Okay.
It's just a guide. So that's the quality management principles, which really works well. So then in clause 4, we talk about context of the organization, which I think we addressed, which is really kind of what you do and how you do it, and they word it really complex, but they've got a whole lot, half a page here on scope. Well, the scope's like, what do you do, what do you not do, right?
Right.
So it's actually fairly straightforward. So, and then we talk about interested parties, who's affected. If you have a chemical release, you need to know ahead of time who's going to be affected by it.
Right.
Not that we haven't discussed that on the podcast previously. So, and then we go into clause 5, which is actually a little bit big, and it's leadership. And so it starts out saying that top management shall demonstrate leadership and commitment with respect to the quality management system. And they've got like A through J points on here. But the big thing here is we're going to be talking about, let's have a plan for how this is going to be effective, right? Let's have a plan for how we're going to account for risk. Let's have a plan for all of these things. And again, you as a quality manager, middle management, you can absolutely put one heck of a plan together, and then you take that to the folks below you, to the folks parallel to you in the organization. You get a little bit of input from them. You take it up to your management. That's engagement with people. You're engaging with leadership, and you're doing all of this focus on your customer. I mean, this is how it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. Because we can't really throw everything at the feet of top management as much as we would like to.
Right.
Because if we threw everything at the feet of top management, well, they probably wouldn't be managing the business. They'd be doing the work instead. So yeah, you can absolutely do it.
Well, I think it's important to note that when we say engagement of the people, and I think there was a word somewhere that I heard or read, I always think getting people on board to follow the quality manual, the procedures, the processes, the everything, and people saying, oh, it's one more thing coming down the pipe. But you mentioned, okay, let's write this out and then give it to them and say, hey, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Not give it to them and say, hey, we're going to follow this.
Right.
So
yeah, it's
by
gotta
asking for their input, you're going to get them more engaged.
You are.
And then hopefully when the final comes down, which is never the final because then we just do Rev A, as Kyle likes to say.
Exactly.
Then, when the first final comes out, you can say, hey, guys, thanks for helping me. Here's what we've got.
Yeah. And so for it to come from the top, it comes from actually multiple layers of the organization, and I've been guilty of this myself, is I've been so frustrated and upset that management wouldn't just tell me what they wanted done here. But at the same time, when they do just tell me what to do, I'm all mad about that I didn't get to have my own opinion.
Right.
And certain other people deal with that too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So it's helpful to get the input so that people feel like they have buy-in, which is something else we've talked about on this podcast.
And this is when an auditor comes out to do your certification audit, when they're conducting the management audit, this is the stuff they're looking for. This is what they want to see. They want to see that the organization is engaged at multiple levels, that leadership, which doesn't mean only the topmost level of leadership, means leadership is engaged with the people and amongst each other, and that your policy actually means something to your business. Your objectives are relevant to what you're trying to get done so that you can focus on the customer. We know who our interested parties are, and maybe some of the folks on the floor even know how what they do could impact people outside those four walls.
Right.
That's what we're looking for. And if you can show that, I mean, it took me, 30 seconds to actually say? So if you can show that in a 3-4 day audit, you're doing pretty good.
Well, and, I think we've talked before about how it should be a team effort. And if you don't have a formal team that's, everybody has their assigned role, it can still be a team effort with an effective quality manager that has read these books or either is just really good with people and can pull the people in. Yeah,
and to clarify, like I talk about reading those books because I had to, because I'm naturally not very good with people. I mean, I'm not, so I'm not going to hide nothing here. I'm sure someone at some point will comment and be like, yeah, he's right, he's not. So I had to do these things to educate myself on how to work with folks better. And, truth is, I kind of took it to an extreme. There's probably over 100 books in my Audible in management fields and theories, whatnot, that I've read. But that's just because that's how I have to approach things. So if you have a different manner to approach it, or you've got different tools at your disposal, go for it.
Yeah, I just feel like you need to be able to kind of massage the people
Yeah.
to get them to lean into it and be on your side.
And when they're not, my gosh, pay attention.
Why aren't they?
Yeah, there's a reason that they are not on board.
Yeah.
And if the reason is just blatant, they don't like change, that's just kind of what it is. But any other reason, then they're just a stick in the mud. Really pay close attention to, because that's the most valuable insight. Because you're going to build a box inside your head of how you think this should go, and I can promise you're not going to be accurate enough.
That just kind of makes me think, maybe unrelated, but our toddler daughter, who is 3, has been a heck of a new experience for us. We had 2 boys who are incredibly active and were a lot to handle on their own. And still are.
Yeah.
I say it in the past tense, like they're not anymore, but they still are. And then we had our daughter. And, a girl is a whole new world. And so she tends to cry and scream and have a lot of fits. And recently, I've been trying to at least pretend to be empathetic. She thinks I'm being empathetic to her. And she'll cry and scream, and I'll get down on my knees, and I'll calmly say, Katie, are you feeling sad right now? And that will kind of calm her down a little bit. And she'll say, yes. And then, we can get to the bottom of it. So it's the same thing.
But the funny one, the funny one, though, is she'll say, no, I'm mad. Yeah. I'm like, well, good for the honesty.
Yes, she's honest. So the point being, that you're dealing with toddlers, no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that. But people in general, it's a natural instinct to want to feel understood.
Yeah.
So if there are people that are not on board and don't want anything to do with it, then just ask questions.
Yeah.
Why aren't you interested in this?
Yeah.
And what about that?
Yeah.
And what about that? And keep asking questions until you get enough information to help them feel like they've been heard.
Yes.
And then again, get them back on your side.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I worked for Best Buy for a while and get through college, and not that you think Best Buy is like the greatest source of leadership training, but in a couple of aspects it was really phenomenal. Because when customers come into the store, all they knew is they needed a computer. They didn't have a darn clue what they needed. They just knew they needed a computer, and they barely even knew that sometimes, honestly. And so, as a supervisor, they went through a lot of training with Best Buy, and they worked very hard to teach you how to extract what they called the unknown needs of the customer.
What they didn't know they needed.
They didn't even know that they needed it. And it wasn't a sleazy sales pitch. I mean, it was a legitimate, like, what's hurting you? Because I worked in the Geek Squad, and let me tell you, half the people that came across the Geek Squad were pissed off.
Right.
So you had to figure out how to extract their pain from them, and to find a solution. And so you got to do the same thing. Same thing here with developing something new.
Yeah, people just want to feel like they're heard.
They do.
So, all right. So I guess that's it for It Starts at the Top. Did you have anything else to add?
No, that's it.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, I seriously think if people could listen and really extract some of what we had to say here, like, oh my gosh, this could save some people a lot of heartache and developing, especially the context, the organization. Again, it hurts
It just
me.
needs to be simple.
Yes.
Don't make it too difficult. No. And, let the people know you're on their side. Because really you are.
You are.
You're trying to make it simple for them.
Yeah. And imagine if you're in their shoes and you're being told to do things differently. You've done them for the last 15 years. Mm-hmm. Well, that guy that's done it this way for 15 years is secure in his job and in how he can do his job. And he goes home every day feeling as though he did a good job. Mm-hmm. And now there's all of these weird, crazy things, especially with some of the terminologies and the standard being thrown around. I mean, you can really push some folks in the corner. And, grown men, you put them in the corner, they're probably not going to respond real well sometimes. I've been there and caused it both, so.
So I think that's one of the great things about us and our business is that Kyle's been on both sides of most of the fences that you guys are encountering. So keep it simple, get people on your side, extract information.
That's it.
Doesn't have to be that hard.
Nope, that's it.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.